Barak Yahawah, Qadash. Welcome to the live lesson. The name of this one is The Dragon Gave Him His Power. This is a lesson I've been wanting to do for at least a week and a half or so, but I haven't been able to do it because it's kind of a vast topic, so I wanted to make sure that I can hit certain points, and make sure that the lesson would be edifying. I don't really have many precepts except for Revelation 13 and one other verse. So it's going to go in the spirit. And pretty much that whole situation about the dragon is really referring back to the Roman Empire, which America is pretty much riding off of the back and power of the ancient Roman Empire. That's why you have something called Americanization, which you can look it up online and it comes up, it'll give you more. There's also Hellenization and Romanization, but I just looked up Romanization and I couldn't find what I needed because, they kind of switched it up. I knew I remember reading about Romanization, but Americanization pretty much is assimilation into American culture, and that's all you really need, and that's exactly what it is. Just like Hellenization is assimilation into Greek culture. Romanization, same thing, assimilation into Roman culture. And the reason why that's important is because America has an influence on the world because it's given to them by Yahawah, by Yahawashi. Now, I just finished watching this video that this guy Mike, I believe his name is Mike Dice, and pretty much, he was going around and giving like a fake, what's the word I'm looking for? Petition. He was giving like a fake petition to so-called quote-unquote Americans, and I'll say about 70%, 65 to 70% of the people agreed with it, and I'll say about 30% didn't agree, 35%. And the petition was, he wanted people to print their name, sign their name, and their date of birth. And pretty much the petition was to mandate and incarcerate those that didn't want to get, that snake juice. All right. And a lot of people, especially women, I was surprised you had some women that weren't with it, but the majority of women, especially them Karens, they were signing that petition like they were signing, getting the award for Nobel Peace Prize award or some shit like that. And these people are pretty much gone because the thing is, like, they're to the point where they'll accept anything that the government pushes out there, and that's why this so-called American system has control and sway over the entire world, and you do have those that are resisting it, and a portion of those resistors, when all hell breaks loose, they're going to comply anyway. It's going to be very few that don't comply with it, So this this idea of the American system pretty much it goes back to the ancient Roman Empire, and that's why when we read the scriptures about the image of the beast, that is the image of the beast, the whole Roman system, which is being pushed through America. Now they have certain policies that may be slightly different, but for the most part, the whole makeup of America is set up just like the ancient Roman Empire was. That's why you have a Senate House, that's why you have a president, there was no other nation that ruled in that fashion, you know, as far as having presidents. And now you have the whole world following behind that. You know, you have your premiers and the this and the that. You know, but for the most part, the way empires were ruled, well, they were ruled by kings and their sons, which were princes, you know, or prince or princess. They would inherit the throne from their father. But in the American system, which goes back to the Roman system, it wasn't so. It was set up and established by giving the power of the government and the people to one man for however long period of times that they had. You know, there were different periods of times in history. Today it's 4 years, you know, but back then it might have been a little less, but nevertheless it's the same concept of giving the power to one man. And you know, the way the Senate houses are ruled, and even in the Apocrypha it says how they didn't rule, even though they had a mighty power, they didn't rule like the other nations ruled. You know, they didn't wear crowns, they didn't wear purple, you know, they weren't in that kingly seat, so to speak, even though they were in the seat of power. So when we read the book of Revelation 13:1, it says, "And I stood upon the sand of the sea." This is dealing with the Apostle John in the Mediterranean Sea, "and saw a beast rise up out of the sea." Now this beast is a representation of all the Edomite empires, beginning with the Greeks and ending with Britain, but really going further, because in the chapter itself it goes all the way to America. And that's what you have to understand, that when you're looking at the system, the beast system of Esau, it begins with the Greeks, it ended with the British, but really America is nothing more than an extension from all seven, because America is the 8th head. And that's what these scholars do not understand. And if they do understand that, seeing that we're breaking it down now, they don't want to accept it. Like your so-called scholars, like David Guzik, agrees that Isaiah 63 is a future prophecy where the Messiah, Yahawashi, he doesn't call him that, but we call him Yahawashi, is going to encounter Esau in the future. But he said he doesn't really accept that. But it don't matter if you accept it or not. The scriptures say, what if some did not believe? So he's really not on board with that. But that doesn't matter if we're on board with it or not, because the Lord's still going to make it happen anyway. So that's what they don't understand. And then, like I said, if we speak it and teach it and they see it, they still won't accept it. Because if they accept the prophecies as they are written, they have to agree that America is doomed, it's finished, it's going to be destroyed by fire. And we understand that the fire is a thermonuclear destruction. So they don't want to accept that. You know, so seeing that they control the narrative, they'll say what they want to say, even though they know the truth. And it's crazy because they'll make movies about the destruction of America, but they will not agree that that's in the scriptures. You know? I mean, some of them will, but for the most part they won't. It says, "And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea." The sea is Mediterranean Sea. The beast is Esau's power system from the Greeks all the way to the British and beyond, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns. Now that 7 heads and 10 horns is broken down in the book of Revelation, the 17th chapter, from the 9th verse down. As you read down, it tells you that this is dealing with people. It's not dealing with the spiritual demon Satan. And everywhere in the book of Revelation where it speaks about this, the dragon or the beast with the 7 heads, 10 horns, is speaking about the structure and empires of Esau. You know, but they'll say, well, when you read the 12th chapter, it says, "I saw Satan and his angels fight against Michael." That's talking about Satan and his angels. No, it's the same, that same old serpent, which is called the devil and Satan, that dragon. It's all a part of the same system. And there are some that understand that when the Lord comes back, he's gonna be fighting against these militaries, but they're not really pushing that out there, because you know they will have to admit that they're going to lose, because it said that their place was found no more in heaven. So they don't want to admit to that. It says, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. Now the name or the word blasphemy, and I left my tablet at home, so I got my other phone. It's not as great, but it'll do. The word for blasphemy is blasphemia, which is vilification, blasphemy, evil speaking, railing. So vilification is when you pretty much slander somebody's name. All right, vilification, slanderous defamation, a rude expression intended to offend or hurt. And how are they doing that? By saying that the Most High's name is Jehovah, by saying that his name is Yahweh, by saying that he's a so-called white man. But we're dealing with the name itself, because the name of the Most High is very important. He said that in that day his name shall be one. So there is one name that is given of the Heavenly Father, which these devils are vilifying or blaspheming. And you have even Israelites that are blaspheming the name of the Lord by withholding it. You know, by saying you can call the Lord anything you want to call him. You can call him your plate yogurt. You know, that's one thing you don't play with, is the Most High's word, his name. You don't play with that. You know, it doesn't matter what his intentions were when he said it. You don't do that, because the Lord could destroy you just for that alone, because you're playing around with his name. And these devils, they blaspheme the name of the Lord. And the scriptures say that the name of the Lord is blasphemed through you every day, through a lot of you Israelites. So that's blasphemy. It says, verse 2, and the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard. Now we're going to the beginning of the beast. Now what is the leopard a representation of? The leopard is a representation of Alexander the Creep, or the Greek, or the Great as they call him, you know, and the actual Greek Empire, because that was the beginning of this beast. You see, and in order for you to understand that, the Spirit got to work with him. It says, and his feet were as the feet of a bear. So now what does the bear represent? The bear represents the Russians. Now the Russians are not a part of the beast with the 7 heads and 10 horns, but they're going to be a part of what brings an end to this beast. That's why I spoke about the first part of it, which was the leopard, which was the beginning of it, and then it gave you the ending of it, which was what? The Russians. And the Russians are what's going to bring an end to this empire called America, with her allies, and even the allies of America are going to turn against them, you know, in these times. All right. So it says, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. Now the lion is a representation of the British Empire, because unbeknownst to many, I mean, some people know, unbeknownst to many, America is still a colony of Great Britain. And the Rawchaa family, they are, you know, they are so-called British citizens. You know, they live in England, you know, and they are the ones that behind the scenes with other international banking families that are really controlling the whole world, you know, and manipulating things in the fashion in which we see them going in the world today. So it says, and the dragon, so now the dragon is a representation of who? The Roman Empire. Because the Roman Empire, which is that dragon, they had the strongest military. That's why in the vision that Nebuchadnezzar had, you know, in the vision that Nebuchadnezzar had, you know, he had the vision of defeat, you know, of iron, part clay, you know, with the toes. And in the book of Daniel, the 7th chapter, it spoke about this particular beast, which was the 4th beast, which is the Roman Empire, being hard as iron. You know, and iron is one of the hardest metals out there, you know, in comparison to the other metals. The other metals are splendor, you know, they're great, like gold and silver, but when you make something out of it, it's not as powerful or as strong as brass, and even as iron. And iron is one of the strongest metals out there. And then when you read about it in Daniel the 7th chapter, it said that it stamped and break the residue with the feet of it. Why? Because it had power to do that. And the feet of it is a representation of what? Of America. America, you know, the EU, because the EU is the 10 toes. That's why I say it was partly strong, partly weak. That's going through the economic basis of those different countries, so-called European countries. So the dragon gave him his power and great authority. I'm sorry, and his seat and great authority, because eventually down the line, well, what happened is, at this particular time in the fight, inside joke, the Romans were in power when the Apostle John had this vision. Because although the Edomites weren't in power, Jake still pushed on with the same pagan Roman Empire ideas. You know, it wasn't until later on till they incorporated, you know, so-called Christianity into the mix. But Jake was still upholding the same Romanization as the ancient Romans. All they did was took the Edomite Romans down, but they assimilated the power of the Romans. So they were still in power. The Romans were still in power through Jake. So it says, and I saw one of his heads as they were wounded to death, because the Roman Empire eventually at that time was taken over. That power that was given to the Edomites at the time was taken over by Jake for a period of 1,000 years. And that's why it's important to understand that history in order to understand these prophecies. So it says, and I saw one of his heads as they were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed. So when was his deadly wound healed? During the time of the Renaissance period. So look at it like this, like they were wounded, they was about to die, but they resurrected, you know, back from the dead. You know, they were brought back up into power. They were healed from that deadly wound. The wound was to the point where they were on their deathbed, you know, but what happened was they were on a deathbed for a long period of time, and that long period of time in that rest, you know, along with whatever else was given them, they were able to come out of that sickly state, so to speak. And that happened during the time of the Renaissance period. That's why the very first thing that they did was go around the world and what? And deceive the world. And how did they deceive the world? By taking down the dark images that were put up by Jake of the Heavenly Father, of Yahawashi, of the prophets, of the angels, so on and so forth, and put themselves in that place, you know. So it says, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast. So everybody wondered after this beast, which was America, in this time, that was following the Roman ways, which is the image of the beast, which is the Roman system. You know, let me just check the time, because I got a dental appointment in a little while, so I may have to do a part 2 to this, you know, depending on how far we get. So that's what happened, you know, the beast that came back into power was the Roman Empire being revived or resurrected through America. Because although America came out of England, the whole structure of these empires go back to the Roman Empire, because the Roman Empire had all of these ancient European countries under their grip. You know, when you look at the power that the Romans exercised, they took down a lot of these European countries and brought them into subjection. You know, you still had your Germanic tribes that fought against them, but for the most part, the so-called civilized world was under the rule of the Romans. You know, and the same way that happened, and they had their armies spread out. You know, it's the same policies and the same military tactics that America uses today, you know, to impose their will on the world, okay? So it says, and all the world wondered after the beast, and that's why they're doing it. That's why you have these individuals, when that dude Mike Dice was doing that interview of the petitions of should the people that have not been hit with the hickey from Crown Vicky, should they be arrested, you know? And then he was playing out scenarios, and then these people are so gullible, he was just playing out scenarios at the top of his head, and people say, yeah, they should, especially them goddamn Karens, you know? So all the world wondered after the beast, you know, because that's, who's pushing this whole narrative? It's coming from America. You know, they blamed it on, you know, the Chinese virus or whatever the case was, but pretty much it's coming from here. You know, this is the place that's really pushing that, you know, all over the world. You know, and they, since the international banking families have sway and power over the world, they are following pretty much the guidelines of this place. You know, because this is the catapult, this is the springboard, the diving board for the New World Order. You know, the NWO or whatever you want to call it, the agenda. This is the springboard, you know, the diving board for the whole thing. This is why this country was set up into power. Because the Lord said that once this 8th head came into power, it was going to go into perdition. All right? So, now, since I mentioned that, I'm glad the Spirit made me mention that, because now that goes to the other precept I had, which is Revelation 17 and 8. It says, the beast that thou sawest was and is not. And this beast is talking about America. Because America came out of the 7 heads. America is the 8th head. So you could understand. The beast that thou sawest was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit. What is the bottomless pit? The bottomless pit is Europe. And why is it known as a bottomless pit? Because no matter how deep you dig down into the soil, it doesn't have the rich minerals and resources and things of that nature to be able to grow these exotic foods or herbs or whatever the case may be. That's why they have to import them from places like India and other places around the world that their soil is fertile. You know, the European soil is not fertile. You know, it says, the beast that thou sawest was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition. Because from the moment that America was established, it was established to be destroyed. You know, so the Lord used this place to build it up, to destroy it. Matter of fact, precept just came to mind. Let's go to the book of Jeremiah, chapter 51 and verse 7. Babylon hath been a golden cup in the Lord's hand, that made all the earth drunken. The nations have drunken of her wine, therefore the nations are mad. That's why they're bugging out, because they're following behind America. And they're also pissed off too. Babylon is suddenly fallen and destroyed. Howl for her, take balm for her pain, if so be she may be healed. We would have healed Babylon, but she is not healed. Forsake her, and let us go every one into his own country, for her judgment reacheth unto heaven, and is lifted up even to the sky. So pretty much this place is finished. There's nothing that you could do to heal this place. The judgment is already set. You know, the sentencing stage is just about up. Next thing that's coming is the destruction, because the Lord has had his prophets out here prophesying, you know, long enough, you know, against this country, you know, against this empire, and now it's time for the Lord to destroy it. Salakia. All right, so let's go back and let's read that again in Revelation 17 and 8. The beast that thou sawest was and is not America, because it was in St. John's vision, but it wasn't at that time. And shall ascend out of the bottomless pit, which is Europe, and go into perdition, meaning destruction. And this place is heading for destruction. America, Babylon the Great, will burn. This guy, Mike, from the Rethink the Dollar show, he had some guests come on. It looked like he had an Issacharite and 2 other Jakes on. And this one Jake, you know, they had FaceTime, and this one Jake kept saying, you know, that this place is going to go down, but it's going to go down because of the people coming against each other, something along those lines. And then he kept mentioning Bible prophecy, but that's not how the scriptures say that this place is going to go down. It's going to go down by fire. It's going to go down by the so-called nuclear missiles that are going to be shot and destroy this place. you know. And the other dude, pay me in money bags. I forgot something. His name is something, has something to do with money bags. He was going into how the everything, the currency and everything is being pushed to go digital because of I believe he mentioned the microchip. I'm not sure if he mentioned the MOTB, but I believe he did mention Revelation 13, if I'm not mistaken, or thereabouts. You know, in a roundabout way, he was saying that they're going to push this chip on the people because they're trying to merge man with machine, you know, in so many words. So let's read this again. The beast that thou sawest was it is not, shall ascend out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition, and they that dwell on the earth shall wander. See, what are they? When you wander after something, you're following behind it, pretty much like a mummy. Wonder. Let's look up the word wonder in Revelation 17 and 8. And then we're going to look up wonder in the Common Dictionary. Wonder, thaumazo, to wonder, to admire, having admiration, marvel, wonder. So you're going to be smitten by this American empire. And this is why in this same chapter, this is why the angel cursed out the Apostle John, because when he saw the woman in the vision, he actually saw a woman, but she must have been bad as hell, because when he looked at her, he was just like in amazement. And that's pretty much how America has the world. That's why, you know, from time to time I mention that song American Woman by, I believe that was the Guess Who. And they said, you know, when you read the lyrics, it says colored lights may hypnotize, sparkle someone else's eyes. So in other words, the way that America's set up, especially in New York, they have all those lights and all that glamour, you know, people are all in awe, you know, because Times Square is the crossroads of the world where people want to come there and see and take pictures, and, you know, so they can brag that they've been there, you know, and all this, you know, this, that, and the other, and the third. So that's that wonder, you know, that wonder. People are wondering after. They're taken by her beauty, by her allure. But really, it's nothing more than a facade. That's just something that they put up as a front. That's a smoke and mirrors act. So the word wonder in the Common Dictionary says the feeling aroused by something strange and surprising, something that causes feelings of wonder, a state in which you want to learn more about something. Yeah. Have a wish or desire to know something. Be amazed at. That's a good one. Be amazed at. Bewilderment. Reverence. Fascination. Admiration. Astonishment. Curiosity. Surprise. You know, so you're marveling after this place, because that's the way it's set up. It's set up in an alluring way. That's why the Most High compared it to a harlot, you know, but it's fine harlot, you know, that was arrayed in scarlet, and, you know, she was smelling good, she was looking good, you know, but it was all a trap, you know, like you had this thought, this skeezer, Cardi B, back in the day. She used to, you know, I believe she said it herself in the interview. She said that she used to go out to clubs, get with dudes, make them think that they were going to hit, went back, you know, to a hotel room, and then they would have some thugs waiting for the dude that they would rob him, you know, and that's how she made a living back then. So that's how America is. America is like this harlot that looks good, smells good, is dressed down to a T. She allures you in, but really it's a trap. And that's exactly what this place is. So the ones that don't have the mark of the Most High, or the Thawah, they're going to wander after the beast. They're going to be aroused and amazed and bewildered and in wonder, and walking towards him in that hypnotic state. Matter of fact, let's look up the word hypnotize or hypnotic. Let's see what it says for hypnotic or hypnotize. Hypnotic. A drug that induces sleep. You could use that. All relating to hypnosis. attracting and holding interest as if by a spell. Like they cast a spell on someone and they're just there, just caught in like a deer in the headlights, and they can't shake it. They can't shake that feeling. But this is why the Lord said that he has 7,000 men that have not bowed the knee to the image of Baal, because you're going to have those that are not going to be caught in that hypnotic state when it comes to, you know, the allure of this society. Because if you don't have that mark of the Most High, you're going to get caught up in the bewilderment, in the wonderment, in the, you know, in the not the fangs, but the web of this American system, which is the revival of the ancient Roman Empire, which is the beast whose deadly wound was healed. So going back, let's read that again. Revelation 17:8. The beast that thou sawest was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition. And they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was and is not and yet is. Because the Lord showed us to the Apostle John, but the Apostle John didn't understand what it meant. Now we understand what it means, and we see the allure. I mean, we live here, so we know that it's bullshit, but you still have people that live here that are still allured by this madness. And this is why when Mike Dice made that fake petition of should people be, you know, sent to jail if they refuse the serpent's serum, you know, that dinosaur piss, you know, should they go to jail? And the people are like, yeah, you know, most of them, I say about 70% of them are like, yeah, you know, that's what they get, they deserve that, yeah, I'm with that, you know, because they're mesmerized by the scent of the dinosaur piss of America. Oh Lord. All right, so let me see what time we got, because like I said, we're gonna have to do a part 2 to this. All right, so I'll go probably another 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and then Lord's will, and then close it out. So going back, let's read the second verse again, Revelation 13:2. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as feet of a bear, and his mouth is the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority. Yeah, because the dragon is a representation of the Roman Empire, and the Roman Empire was in power at that time. And the Roman Empire, out of all the empires, was going to be the strongest empire outside of America, which is the reincarnation, the resurrection of that ancient Roman Empire. That's why their military might is the same as Romans, but greater. You see? Because it mirrors the same way. There's many parallels of America to ancient Rome. That's why it's known as the image of the beast. It says, and I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death. This was the Roman Empire that was wounded to death back then when Jake took over. And his deadly wound was healed. And the deadly wound was healed through the time of the Renaissance period. You know, and by that time, America was in the makings. You know, it was already being built up. You know, it was already being conquered. Taken away from Gad, taken away from Reuben, taken away from Issachar. All of the other lands, Canada and South America, Central America, the Caribbean islands, all of that was being taken over by Esau. Because the Lord was, especially in North America, was establishing the headquarters for the agenda of the New World Order, the NWO today. It says, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast. All the world wondered after the beast. And that's exactly what happened. And that's why you see what you see today. That all these nations have, in some way or another, a form of America in their everyday life. That's why the scriptures, the Lord cursed out Asia, you know, for being a partaker of Babylon, because you're doing the same exact things. There's no surprise why the whole world, you go to these different countries that 100 years ago didn't have, you know, any skyscrapers. Now everybody has skyscrapers. Dubai and China and Japan and, you know, Singapore in all these different countries. Why is that? Because the first skyscraper, which was 10 stories high, was in America, in Chicago, which was an actual insurance agency. And that was considered the tallest building in the world at the time. So who gave the blueprint for that? America. And then they started building skyscrapers, you know, and the world started building them. This is all a part of following after America, their democracy and the way that things run in their country. It all mirrors America. These different countries hate America, but then they got McDonald's, they got Hooters, they got, you know, Taco Bell, they got all these different American franchise businesses in their country. Why is that? Because the whole world is wandering after the beast. It says in verse 4, and they worship the dragon which gave power unto the beast. Yeah, and they're worshiping the ancient Roman Empire. That's why when you read further down, it speaks about the image of the beast. It speaks about those that worship the image, because they're bowing down to the system of the ancient Roman Empire, because that is the way to get ahead in this society, because that's the narrative, or that's the agenda that they push on the people. You want to get ahead, you got to follow these guidelines. You see? And they worship the dragon which gave power unto the beast, and they worship the beast, which is America, which is EU, you know, which is NATO, all in conglomeration. It says, saying, who is like unto the beast, who is able to make war with him. And nobody can make war with America and NATO and the EU. You know, you have Russia and China and them that are getting together to counter an offensive, but really there's nobody that has the military might that these devils have, and that pride, you know, has reached to the skies. You know, that's why Yahawashi, Michael the archangel, the other archangels, the angels are coming back to kick this devil in the ass, because the scriptures, like King David said, which was a future prophecy, who would lead me into the strong city? Who would lead me into Edom? Will not thou, Lord, which did not go out with our armies before? So the Lord is the one that's going to come back, send his son Yahawashi back to destroy this devil with the angels. They're going to destroy Esau and their angels, which is called the dragon and the serpent, that old serpent, you know, the devil and Satan. You know, all of those are names to describe these devils, you know, adversary, you know, so on and so forth. Dragon, a cruel one, you know. They are all names to describe this devil's empire, describe this devil to a T. It says, and there was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies. And this mouth, which is America, goes back to Daniel the 7th chapter, where it spoke about the little horn that was given a great mouth. And this is pretty much where they pushed a lot of the what's the word I'm looking for? Customs, ideas, ideologies, you know, of America, on the world, by America. You know, like they'll say, you know, accept democracy and we'll help you out. And then there's pictures of, you know, if you don't accept democracy, democracy will come to you, and they'll have a plane dropping bombs. Because this devil don't play fair. He'll give you time, you know, and bribe you with money to take, you know, the bribe. But if you don't take it, guess what's going to happen? If you don't take it, they're going to take you out. You have something called an economic hitman. Those economic hitmen go into different countries and they offer money to these different leaders to sell out. Once that fails and the leader doesn't bite, no matter how much money they offer, then they send the real hitman in. You know, and that's where you get these assassinations of these different leaders that don't comply with the will of these devils, because they have the power and sway over the whole world. See? It says, speaking great things and blasphemies, and power was given unto him to continue 40 and 2 months. Yeah, and that 40 and 2 months was from the time that the bulk of the slaves were brought here, Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, until the 1969, 1970, when the truth really started to spring out. Because the prophecy could not go forward until the other three tribes were brought to this world, to this side of the world, because eventually, after Judah, Benjamin, Levi served that punishment, you know, because we were already catching hell over here, but until they didn't finish serving their punishment, the Lord wouldn't move the prophecies forward. And one of the main things that happened after that 350-year period was the Lord was raising up Judah, he was raising up Ephraim, he was raising up Issachar, and then eventually all the other tribes to come together as one. This is why that 12 tribe sign is so important. You know, the 12 tribe sign is important because that 12 tribe sign identifies who the Israelites are in bringing Israel back together. And that's why it's so important to have it when you go out and speak in the streets, so that Jake can look at it and ask about it, inquire about it, and that opens up an avenue to converse or speak about that and break it down, you know? So let me see what time it is. Okay, oof. All right, so I'll go maybe another 5-10 minutes. So, and that's what happened, and that what that did was that fulfilled the scripture in Ezekiel 37 chapter about the tribes and the bones coming back together, because it couldn't happen until the 350-year period was up. It couldn't happen until the tribes came back together. Things couldn't move forward, because at one point the tribes were coming together, and you did have Issacharites and Ephraimites that were getting with Judah and bouncing back and forth different ideas to help the community, because that's what it was about at the beginning, was to help the community, you know, to get Jake better jobs, you know, to stop police brutality, so on and so forth, you know. But that wasn't the breath. The Lord didn't want that breath for Jake, but that was the beginning stages of it, you know. Then eventually the truth came out, and then the real breath came into them, and they started building together. That's why it's no coincidence that you had Judah, Benjamin, Levi, you know, at One West in Harlem, and then you had Ephraim eventually started coming in there. Manasseh was getting up in there, and eventually all the rest of the tribes, as you see going on today. This is a fulfillment of prophecy, you know. So it couldn't happen until that 350-year period was fulfilled, and now we're past that. We're beyond that. We're in the point now where the Lord is building up the tabernacles of the house of David. It says, and he opened his mouth in blasphemy against the Most High, to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle and them that dwell in heaven. And we see that happening every day. You know, even when you try to bring out the fact that the Most High and Yahawashi and the Israelites were people of color, they don't want to hear that. You know, they're going to, well, no, when it says his head and his hairs are white like wool, it says his head was white, so he was white. No, you better shut your white mouth. No, because when you read it in the, I believe it's the NLT and the NIV, it said the hair of his heads were white like wool, meaning the hair that was on top of his head, you know, on his face, on his beard, his mustache, his eyelashes, his eyelashes, his eyebrows, they were all completely white, and it was woolly. You know, then it goes on to his feet, and then in Daniel 7 chapter speaks about the texture of the Most High's hair. You know, and in other scriptures it tells you that the Israelites were so-called black. You know, so there's a great deception going on. So that's the blasphemies that are being pushed around the world. Then they say that the Most High's name is, you know, and we tell them it's Yahawah, and then they make fun of it. You know, they make fun of the Most High's name, they make fun of Yahawashi's name. So they got to pay for all of that. So it goes on to say, time check. All right. So it goes on to say, And it was given unto him to make war with the saints and to overcome them, and power was given him over all kindreds and tongues and nations. Yeah, and that happened because they were able to take down all Israel here. And then when Judah was here, there was nothing Judah could do, because the curse has said that that your sons will be sold. You you get a wife, another man shall lay with her, and it said that there will be no might, no power in thy hand to do anything about it. So they had that power, and they were given power over the whole world. What other nation is ruling over the whole entire planet Earth, over all nations? Who's imposing their will over all nations? The ones that are doing it now are following behind America, which is following behind the Greeks, which is following behind the Romans. That's exactly what the Greeks and the Romans did, which is what America's doing. They have sway and power over all the whole earth. That's where they got their military in the whole earth. No other nation fits this prophecy. It says, and all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb, slain from the foundation of the world. And I'm going to stop it there because, I'm a little pressed for time now. Lord's will, I could come back and finish out the chapter. The next two verses are easy to break down. That's not really, you don't need to break that down. But Lord's will, I could do a part 2 later, after my dental appointment. But yeah, and that's pretty much it, So the whole world is wondering after the beast. The dragon gave him his power. The dragon, as we're going to see in the next part, Lord's will, Lord puts the spirit on me to be able to do that part. We're going to be able to see how when the beast was revived, they took on the customs of the ancient Roman Empire, which was the beast whose deadly wound was healed. Now, how was it healed? Because Rome never came back into the power that it used to be in the ancient world, meaning the European location of Rome, but through America they were able to be established. And it's not a coincidence that the treaties that were set up and how the EU and NATO and that was set up, I believe it was NATO, was set up under the not the Club of Rome. I forget the name of the. If brothers know what it is, you can put it on the comment board. There's a treaty that it was called, something about Rome, Treaty of Rome, I believe it was. There's no coincidence that it happened to be that. How come it couldn't be the Treaty of Greece or the Treaty of Hungary, or the Treaty of Czechoslovakia, or the Treaty of Turkey or the Treaty of France? Why did it have to be the Treaty of Rome? Because it was the Lord showing us in this time that this was the ancient Roman Empire being revived again, being set back up into power. As, I believe it was called the Treaty of Rome. Yep, Treaty of Rome. Yep, the water, the brother put it up. Yep, the Treaty of Rome. Yep, that's right. And that's no coincidence that it happened that way, So with that, man, wish I could continue on, but it's getting close to that time. So Lord's will, if the spirit of Yahawah allows, I would like to come back and do a part 2 to this and finish this up, because this is very important. This is very important. A very important prophecy to understand, because when we get to the second part of it, everything starts to unravel as far as technology-wise, pushing towards the MOTB and this whole economic system, digital dollars, everything being merged online. It brings all of that to life once you understand that history and the prophecy that's connected with it, So yeah, these are some exciting times. So Lord's will, you brothers, few sisters out there were edified. To the next time I say shalom.